Now, like I say, politicians of the left seem more inclined to go really hard with these coronavirus bans. We've even got Queensland Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk refusing to open her state's border to tourists to save her devastated tourism industry, even though across the entire country there are fewer than 500 people still sick with the virus.
It would be negligent for any government leader not to be taking the interests of families first and foremost. So Simon Birmingham, go and talk to your own Premier in South Australia and get that sorted first before you start commenting on other jurisdictions.
I think it's a missed opportunity though for tourism providers with the school holidays, with winter school holidays coming up, a time when a lot of southerners like to come up here for sunshine. Is that a missed opportunity?
Well, you obviously have a family. Do you want your family to have community transmission from New South Wales? Do you? Do you want to put that at risk?
I don't think people care about,
But I think we all care about our families. We all care about Queensland.
Joining me are Bruce Hawker, who helped run Labor campaigns, now head of Bruce Hawker Consulting, and Jenna Clark, assistant editor of the West Australian. Jenna, what did you make of Palaszczuk's answer?
It's really interesting, Andrew, because obviously our Premier Mark McGowan over here in Western Australia is just as strident when it comes to the fact that we don't want any East Coasters in Western Australia at the moment. Don't forget, we're still living within regional restrictions here in Western Australia. As of Thursday night, only the Kimberley and biosecurity areas will be off limits to those of us that want to travel up north. Tourism operators and I think general punters are pretty much split with this 50-50 cause of whether we want all of the regional borders to open. I think a lot of people today were probably scared by the fact that we had a live export ship dock at Fremantle Port on Friday, and 6 of the crew have tested positive for coronavirus. So we've gone from 4 COVID cases to 10 in 2 days, and I think that's definitely scared the West Australian public.
Yeah, we'll get to that ship in a second, although I think if there's 6 sailors on board who are sick, it's very easy to make sure that they don't infect anyone in Western Australia. You're not going to get it going to buy milk down the street. Bruce, what did you make of Palaszczuk's answer?
Well, before I go to that, Andrew, I think we should point out that there are 2 Liberal state governments which also have their borders closed, South Australia and Tasmania. Yes. So it's not just a Labor fixation. And look, as to Palaszczuk's comments, I can understand concerns that people would have about the virus. I have those sort of concerns as well. I think further down the line, she will open up the borders. And my thinking about it really is that let's see how the lessening of restrictions go over the next couple of weeks and form a judgment about it then, because, as you know from previous discussions, I worry about a surge coming in a second wave, as happened in Singapore and Japan and other jurisdictions. So
we weren't seeing second waves in Singapore and Japan. This is one of the great furphies that Dan Andrews in Victoria keeps mentioning. There was no big second wave. And in fact, Singapore's death toll per head of population is exactly the same as ours. Japan's is not much more.
Yeah, I think they had 500 in the last day in Singapore or thereabouts. So it's not. It is much worse than Australia, and I just think it stands to reason that as we lessen these restrictions, we should pause before we make decisions further down the line. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, but we've been paused for... This curve has been flat as a tack for a month now. I'm just wondering how much security and safety people want. Jenna, I don't even understand. Like, you've got your borders closed right next to South Australia. They haven't had a single person sick with the virus for a couple of weeks now. Why don't you at least let South Australians in? I just don't understand the paranoia here.
Yeah, you say paranoia. I think I'm getting hints of arrogance from our government, actually, Andrew, especially the eastern states borders. I think there was definitely an air of the fact that he was clapping back to New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian when she was urging the New South Welshmen to come and holiday in WA, which a lot of tourism operators would love at this time of year. And he just sort of rebuffed those comments, saying, well, we don't care. We don't care that they want to come here. Until they show signs that there is a minimal community transmission, we will not be lowering the border. borders. So I think there's definitely a growing chorus of people that definitely want us to lower that at the eastern states border and the hard border with the rest of the country. But then I also think that there is a silent majority that are really deathly quite scared of this virus still, and I don't know whether that is because the government messaging has been so consistent around flattening the curve and borderlining on eradication rather than suppression.
Bruce, Scott Morrison's speech today about how to get out of this mess, were you impressed?
Well, look, I welcome any Prime Minister who wants to stand in the middle politically. As I've said for a long time, for Labor, it's where we govern from most effectively, whether it was Bob Hawke back in the times of the Accord, or people like Bob Carr and Neville Wran in New South Wales and elsewhere. That's where Labor governments govern effectively from. So if Scott Morrison is able to position himself in the centre and actually have a serious attempt at reforming the industrial relations laws in a way that is fair both to the employer and the employee, then I'd give him credit for that. I think, though, it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to be a real challenge to do it in the area of industrial relations. I think it's one thing to create this unity ticket around the response to the coronavirus and the national cabinet and so forth. But when it comes to IR, we have some very, very strong positions pretty much set in concrete on both sides. And he's going to need to be very careful that he doesn't go alienating the Conservative wing of the Liberal Party and the National Party by going too far the other way. I hope he does, but I don't think he will be able to, and that will leave him stranded.
Jenna?
I love this, and I think that Scott Morrison really shines because he is a marketer at heart. We can't forget that he did create Lara Bingle as we know it all the way back then for the Tourism Australia campaign. This was his Lara Worthington. It was a great ad, and she became an icon, and now she's even become a bigger icon for social justice, and she's a businesswoman, successful businesswoman in her own right, and I think this definitely was his Lara Worthington moment. Look, I know that a lot of people are sort of pillar him, especially on the opposition for, Scotty from marketing being back and just with a lot of slogans. But I think we all need a lot of slogans right now because there's so much uncertainty in the world. And I like the fact that he's talking a lot about collaboration. And I think that that is a really good sign for not only IR laws moving forward, but hopefully other causes that we all want to work towards, be it, the fact that it was on Sorry Day is also quite prevalent as well. And the fact that things like gender equality, collaboration is key for governments moving forward from 2020. And I tell you what,
picking up on what Bruce said, if both parties want to rule from the centre, then what's the point of voting for either one? Because you'll get exactly the same result. This is a whole thing. Bruce Hawker and Jenna Clark, thank you so much indeed to you both.